and it has a strong signal. And when it hits the end of the line, it reflects. If you get a lot of stuff reflecting, every time it's sending out a communication and it's bouncing, it sends it again. So if, for instance, if this device, 7350, wants to talk to a WebStat, it'll send out, my temperature is 70 degrees, boom. And the WebStat sends, okay, got it. Now, if there's a reflection, it may bounce off of that and say, wait a minute, didn't get there. So we send out another signal. It says, it's 70 degrees, you hear that? Doesn't get a reply, sends it again, keeps sending it. And then after 5 minutes, it stops sending, gives you an alarm. So you have everything doing that, and the more reflections you have, the more noise you have on a bus, the more communications, it just builds from there. So the end-of-line modules are very important for absorbing the noise. You gotta have them on there.
Is that just an end-of-the-line resistor? Or is that
It's kind of, I believe it's just a resistor. It might be a capacitor in there
Yeah,
too.
it's an RC network.
RC network, okay. The stats are here. This is right from the spec sheet. By the way, that packing material that comes in the box, keeps stuff from getting damaged, has writing on it. That's actually instruction sheets. I found that out. I was completely amazed. You got to read that, and this stuff is on that instruction sheet. Being a guy, my attitude is, if I have to read the instructions, I lose. I've already given up. Yeah, when someone calls me up and says, I couldn't find anything on this in the instructions, I know he's been working on it for days. And finally had to desperately go into the instructions and find out what he did wrong. The wiring diagrams, of course, are your typical wiring diagrams, and you know, Y1, Y2, W1, W2, and so on. You look up the air handlers, that's part of the instructions. And then the wire you use, typical thermostat wire, 18 gauge to 22 gauge. Now, if you're going to put in remote sensors, I always recommend a remote sensor have shielded wire. And you ground the shield at one end. Because noise will come from anywhere. And I've had one occasion where everything's working fine, but they ran a wire. It's a library of all places, just outside sensor. Bring the wire in, couldn't have been more than 30 or 40 feet. Caused everything to go crazy because it wasn't shielded. Picked up noise somewhere. So it's always good if you're going to run a long wire run, it's a sensor, you shield it.
We always recommend shielding. Period.
Yeah. Far less problems. The bus wire on lawn is not shielded. The bus wire in the lawn world is better off not shielded.
It's high speed.
It's high speed. Shield just induces a noise. It actually acts like an antenna. If you're using RS-485, you probably want to shield it, but in the lawn world, very seldom do you use shielded wire. Questions so far? Real exciting, huh?
Is it twisted then?
It's twisted, yeah. Aren't we all a little bit? And the hookup is your typical W1, W2, Y1, Y2, and so on. There are connections for discharge air, which is something a lot of stats don't have, except in the commercial world, and outdoor air sensor connection. Now, on this system, since it is lawn, the stats are all masters. You know, we think in terms of RS-485 and so on, and we have a network master, and everything else is kind of a slave to that system. Well, in the lawn world, everything's a master. It's peer-to-peer communication. So I can put an outside air sensor to here, and I can share that to the other devices. I also have the capability, since it does have a humidity sensor built into the staff, I could have a remote humidity sensor also. So I can read temperature and humidity remotely or within the stat.
Can you do both?
No. It does have the capability of averaging, but you need 4 sensors. Or a 20K sensor, there's also a 10K sensor made for averaging. And you can use 2 of those in series. In the old days it was squares, 4, 9, 16, 25, and you wire the series parallel. It's in the instructions on how to hook it up. But what it does is you do the math, it comes out to 20K. At 77 degrees, 20,000 lumens. And to mount the WebStat, physically mounting it, there are screws, connections here. Now, you can mount it on a wall like this, somewhere in a safe spot, and I've done that many times. Put it in the panel, makes it look even nicer. But you know, it's low voltage, so you can mount it exposed. Just wherever it's going to be convenient. And typically, you tend to mount that near an IP connection, you know, Ethernet connection. It's not unusual to have it in someone's office. You want to put it somewhere also where it's convenient. How many guys here are controls guys? Okay. How many guys just do everything? Yeah. Okay. We got to get you guys into the control guy mode. Now, a control guy doesn't lift anything heavier. Who's that? Okay. This is the heaviest you want to lift. If they have a compressor, the young guy would take that compressor up to the roof. I'm a controls guy. I don't do that. You want to make sure you mount this somewhere where you can plug into it easily and still get to the coffee. Have a chair there, a little table.
Always want a chair, somewhere to put your
Somewhere
PC.
you can put your computer. Okay? Get a controls guy. Sorry, I don't do ladders. We have guys who do ladders. I'm the controls guy. I do this. So you got to get that mode. Okay, when you walk into a building. I used to wear a tie. I can't go on the roof. I got a tie on. You know. Just keep that in mind when you get that mindset when you're working on these things. Tyler will explain it all to you. He's very good at that. So when you're mounting the WebStat, you want to make sure, or static electricity is not good for control. Also, when you get noise, the environment is important. It's 32 degrees to 122. You're not going to mount this thing outside. You're going to mount it in a room that's relatively conditioned. You know, you don't put it in a 150 degree boiler room. Also, there is a ground connection, and maybe they'll show it in one of these pictures. And you can't see it here. Yeah, right here. There's a ground connection, a little plug, quick connect, spade connects there, and the wire kind of hangs down. That ground has got to be connected on any Jace, whether it's a WebVision, whether it's a Web 600, whether it's a Web 200 or WebStat. Any DDC control has to be grounded.
Earth ground.
Earth ground, real ground. I wired it to a pipe. Well, it was a plastic pipe. You don't wire it to pipe. You wire it to. You connect to a true earth ground, because when noise comes in the line, it's got to go somewhere. If it goes to the microprocessor is like hitting it with a hammer. So where am I? So you have to make sure that it's grounded.
Failure to do so can cause communication issues and all kinds of undesirable.
Well, it loses memory.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you say, well, how come it doesn't see these stats anymore? You know, when you start having things like you re-download, get everything going, and you get a call 2 days later, hey, nothing's working. Go back in there, re-download, everything works.